So now we are discussing chapter 2 of Corman book, that is for introduction to algorithms and algorithm analysis. And the goals of today's discussion would be we would like to start using frameworks for describing and analyzing algorithms. First is this. We're examining two algorithms for sorting. First is insertion sort, and then we'll talk about merge sort. And then we'll see how we can describe this algorithm in the form of pseudocode, means not exactly in the form of programming language, but how we are going to describe them in pseudocode. We'll talk about using asymptotic notation to express this running time analysis, because we are concerned about running analysis of algorithm that will tell us how fast or how efficient the algorithm is. And we'll also learn the technique of divide and conquer in the context of merge sort, because this applies it. The main reason is that this chapter 2, they are the lecture notes. They are the lecture notes for that should or that will accompany the instruction manual of Corman question and answer. So before going to question answer, it is advisable to learn this. So let us go ahead. First, we'll see this insertion sort, and it is a sorting problem. So we have some sequence of numbers, say from A1 to AN, and the output should be a permutation or reordering of these A1 to AN in some form A1 dash to AN dash of the input sequence, such that this should occur, means they should hold. The first one should be less than equal to second one, and likewise, and the last one should be the highest one. So these sequences are typically, they are known as sorting and stored in arrays. So we will be using arrays for insertion sort. Sort is a problem, sorting is a technique, and this will be used on data structure which are arrays. So we refer to the numbers as keys, these numbers as keys, and along with each key, all these key may be additional information, so we call it as a satellite data. And this is not related to satellite at all. And we'll also see several ways to solving these sorting problems. And these different ways, they are known as algorithm. That is, we have well defined computational procedures that will take some value or some set of values, in this case A1 to AN, as input, and they will produce some values, these values in this case, as output. And how to express it in algorithms. So we express algorithm in your way, the clearest and most concise form. But of course, we'll use English in this because it is understandable now. And when we want to actually show the control, we want to make controls clear, how this program control is changing, we will use pseudocode. So this is how the difference between algorithm and pseudocode is. So what is pseudocode? Which is similar to C, C++, Java, and latest programming language. And if you are able to understand these language, any one of these language, you'll be able to understand the pseudocode. And pseudocode is just designed to express algorithm which is understandable by humans, means us. And we have seen software engineering issues like data abstraction, modularity, and error handling. We generally ignore this while expressing algorithms right now. We also try to embed English statements into pseudocode. So unlike our real programming language, we cannot create a compiler which can translate this pseudocode to machine code. For that, we have to write our algorithm properly in these languages. And what about insertion sort? We will be seeing this insertion sort. This was the sorting problem. This is a good algorithm for sorting small number of elements. And how does it work? It will, you might have played cards. So this is exactly same as playing of cards. So we start with the empty left hand. This is the left hand. And the cards face down on the table. Cards are not there. So then we remove one card. These are the pile of cards. Number of cards are there. So we remove one card at a time from the table and insert it into correct position in the left hand. So we have left hand. We use right hand to take one card, place it in the correct position. And to find the correct position of a card, we need to compare it with each of the cards already in hand. If we have one card, we'll compare the second one with the first one. If we have two cards, we compare the third one with these two. And this occurrence will happen from right to left. Right to left. We'll see in this exam, means coming algorithm. So all the times these cards which are held in the left hand, they are sorted. And these cards were originally the top cards of the pile on the table, which we have taken one by one. So let us write pseudocodes. I expressed something about pseudocode, but we'll formally know how pseudocode we are going to write for insertion sort. So pseudocode first takes as parameter an array. That is, we use data structure as array from 1 to n, and the length n of the array. And we use this dot to denote that these are the ranges. But means 1 to n. So we have 1, 2 till n, or the numbers till n. And we designate this one as the origin indexing and we'll use 0 also somewhere, because when we want to try it for C, C++, and Java, and most of the language they use 0 as the origin for array. So you have to be very careful while you use these indices, because in programming language it will start from 0 only, right? And there's one more option this is to adjust all index calculation in the C, C++ or Java code to compensate to make it well, converted into the programming languages. So uh, one of the easier option is when using we use this array to allocate the array to be one entry longer, say a0n, and just don't use the entry at index 0, right? But these are the lecture notes, and we try to indicate array length by parameter rather than any using length attribute that is used in the book of Coleman, and that will save us considerable line of pseudocode each time. So the solutions continue to use the length attribute, right? So the array A is sorted in place, and the numbers are rearranged within the array with at most a constant number outside the array at any time. The numbers are rearranged within this array with at most a constant number outside the array at any time. We'll see more of it. This is a simple insertion sort. We start from from 2 to n, because 1, as I said, we have 1 on the hand, and we assign a key value aj, and then we try to insert this aj into the sorted sequence a1 to j minus 1. Means j is after j is after j minus 1, so we assume that 1 to j minus 1 they are already sorted, and we assign this j minus 1 to I, and we search in this while loop that if I is greater than 0, means we'll do it till we come to I, which is equal to 0, which is the number of the last ai, and then ai has to be greater than key also, and we swap it. If these two conditions hold, we swap it and we assign I minus 1 to I, because we want to reach from say 5 to 4, 3, 2, 1, and we assign key to ai plus 1. But what will be the cost? This will take n, say some cost c1 into n times, and then c2 n minus 1 0, because this is just a line which will not take any time, so cost will be 0. But the time it will take n minus 1, because it is in the for loop. In the for loop, so all that this will run for n, and inside values run for n minus 1 times. While these this one c5 while loop, this will run from j to n, because it is from j to n, and just tj, let us assume it to be tj. We don't know what tj is right now, and because these two values are inside, or these two instructions are inside while, we'll run it for tj minus 1 because they are inside. So if it runs for tj, this will run for tj minus 1 and tj minus 1, and again this is for inside for loop, so that will run for 9 minus 1 times. So how it is going to work, let us see it very carefully. So first is we have 1 here, means 5 number is here, and then we start j with 2. So we compare 5 and 2, and we see that 2 is less than 5, so we swap them. And this is the checking, and this is the swapping. This is what swapping means. Here we are assigning this swapping value is changing the positions. Then what happens? This we move ahead. This heavy vertical line, we move ahead, and then we compare. We first of all increment j, that will be 3 now, and we compare 4 with 5, means the previous one. So 4 and 5, we see that okay, 4 is smaller, so we replace, swap. Again we check for this condition and we swap them. Then again we will move this ahead, vertical line, heavy vertical line, and we compare these two, and we see that okay, these two are fine, we don't need to swap them, so this will not hold, this while will not hold here. Again same sequence here, and then we see that 1, and we also see that 6 is the greatest. Here when we replace 5, we see that once the 5 is replaced here or shifted here, 2 and 4 are less than 5. But when we do this thing and we check for 6 and 1, we say okay, 1 is small, we shift it here, 6 will be shifted here. But again we see that 1 is less than 5, so we have to shift 5 also. This is why this while loop will run from this 5, means the value of 5 to 1, right? This will go again and again till 1 finds its position and these are shifted. And once we find that these values are being placed in the correct position, we shift this heavy line here, and we see 3 and 6. But to our surprise, 6 and 3 will be shifted. Okay, 3 is small, but 3 is less than 5 also, so we have to shift it again. And we said 3 is less than 4 also, so we have to shift it again. And finally, this shifting, the sorted array is like this. And what about the correctness of what we have just done? We use loop invariant to help us understand why an algorithm gives the correct answer. This is very important aspect. We'll see loop invariant for insertion sort. What is loop invariant? At the start of each iteration of the outer for loop, we have for loop, outer for loop, and inside we have a while loop. So at the start of each iteration, the loop indexed by j minus the subarray of one array a of j minus 1. This consists of elements originally in a1 j minus 1, right? But in sorted order. So this is what we call as loop invariancy. So to use a loop invariancy to prove correctness, we have to show, or we must show three important things. First is initialization, which should be true prior to the first iteration of the loop. Then we have to perform maintenance, means it is true before an iteration of the loop, and it remains true before the next iteration also. It has this thing should maintain. Then termination, when the loop is going to terminate, this invariant usually along with the reason that the loop terminated, which gives us a property, a useful property that helps show the algorithm is correct. And using this loop invariancy is just like mathematical induction. Just to prove a property holds, you prove a base case, and then you apply inductive step, and then showing that invariants hold before the first iteration is like the best base case, and showing also that the invariant holds from the iteration to iteration is like the inductive step, just like induction. And also we need to have a termination part, which differs from the usual use of mathematical induction here, in which the inductive step is used infinitely, and we will stop the induction when the loop is terminating. And these we can show the three parts in any order. Just take an example. For insertion sort, the initialization is just before the first iteration. We start with j equal to 2. You must have noticed here. We started j from 2, right? So the subarray means a1 to j minus 1, just previous to j equal to 2. That is the previous values. It is only single element. That is before 2 we only can hold a1, which is the element originally in a1, and it is trivially sorted. So initialization is complete. What about maintenance? To be precise, we would need to state and prove a loop invariancy for the inner while loop. We have a while loop inside a for loop. But we will not go for the second or another loop invariancy. What we do, we'll instead note that the body of the inner while loop works by moving from aj minus 1 to aj minus 2, aj minus 3. This is how it is variating. We are variating from one position to another, and so on by one position to the right until the proper position of key, as we have seen here. One has got its position to the correct position, 3 has moved to its correct position by these steps until the position of key is found, and at that time the value of key is placed into this position, right? Finally, the termination, the outer for loop, which will end when j is greater than n. We have n numbers, so this occurs when j is equal to n plus 1. So j minus 1 is equal to n, of course, take 1 here. So plugging n in for j minus 1 in the loop invariant, the subarray, which is our a n minus 1, consists of the element which is originally in a n minus 1 by n. So in a sorted order, so we have values which are sorted, but they originally belong to the initial values which has been input. So entire array is sorted, and we have some pseudo conventions. First is indentation. This indicates the block structure, as you have seen in the pseudocode, and we say it saves space and writing time. We also have looping constructs. They are like just C, C++, Pascal or Java, any of these, and we assume that the loop invariant in a for loop is still defined when the loop exists. That is not the case in Pascal. This symbol indicates that the remainder of the line is a comment, and variables are local unless they are specified. We will use objects which have attributes, equivalently fields, and for attribute we will use attr for object x. We will write this as attrx. And this will just be similar to x.attr in various languages, and x, it is a pointer, like this in C++. And objects are treated just like references, like in Java. If x and y, they denote objects, then this is the assignment, which makes x and y reference to the same objects. It does not cause attributes of one object to be copied to another. This is not a copying. This is not a copying assignment. Then parameters, they are passed by value, as in Java and C. When an object is passed by value, it is actually a reference or a pointer that is passed. So changes to the reference itself are not seen by the caller, but changes to the object attributes will. The Boolean operators and or, they are often called as short-circuiting. If after evaluating the lower hand operand, we know the result of the expression, then we don't evaluate the right hand operand at all. If x is false in x and y, then we don't evaluate y. Why would we go for y? And if x is true, of course, for in R, then we don't evaluate y in this case. So now we come to actual part, which is analyzing the algorithms, and we want to predict the resource that the algorithm requires. What would be the resources? Algorithm would run in some or the other machine in the form of program, which is running time. So in order to predict resource requirements, let us make a computation model, which we call as random access machine model. So instructions are executed one after another, no concurrent operations. So it's too tedious to define each of the instruction and their associated time cost also. What we do, we recognize that we will use instruction commonly found in real computers like arithmetic, data movement, and control. And each of these instructions take a constant amount of time. The RAM model uses integer and floating point types and will not worry about the precision. That it is very crucial in terms of numerical applications. But we have to come to some consensus. So there is a limit on the word size when working with input size n, and we assume that integers are represented by c log n bits for some constant c greater than or equal to 1. Log n is actually log 2n, so base 2 will it will be implicit whenever we talk about this. C is greater than 1, we can hold the value of n, we can index the individual element, and c is a constant, the word size cannot grow arbitrarily. So how do we analyze an algorithm running time, which is actually the time taken, which is actually dependent on the input. So sorting 1000 numbers take longer than sorting 3 numbers, of course. And a given sorting algorithm, it may take different amount of time on two inputs of the same size because we have two different algorithms. We'll see that the insertion sort take less time to sort n elements when they are already sorted than when they are in reverse sorted order. It will take much more time. And what about input size? This is actually depending on the problem we are studying. The number of items in the input, and like the size n of the array being sorted. But if we employ multiplication to two integers, this could be total number of bits in the two integers. This is something else. This can also be described by more than one number. Just for instance, graph algorithm running times. They are graph in terms of graph we talk about vertices and edges in this input graph. So this can be the input size. On a particular input, it is for the running time. It is the number of primitive operations which are executed. And we want to define steps to be machine independent as far as possible. And we would figure each line of the pseudocode, which requires a constant amount of time. And one line may take a different amount of time than another, but each execution of line I takes the same amount of time, Ci. We assume like this. And this is assuming that the line consists only of primitive operations. But if a line is of subroutine call, then the actual call takes some constant time, but the execution of the subroutine being called might not. So if the lines specify operations other than the primitive ones, then it might take more than constant time. Just for example, sort the array by x coordinate. So let us analyze this insertion sort. We have seen now what were the costs or efforts which are applied. So we assume that the ith line takes some ci time, which is a constant. And in insertion pseudocode you have seen that the third line is a comment, so it will not take time. And what about j from 2 to n? We assume that tj be the number of time that the while loop test. I don't know it, or we don't know it, the value of j. And we have to note that when a for or while loop exists in a usual way, and because it is testing in the loop header, the test is executed one time more than the loop body. That is why for is given n times, and for the values or the instruction inside for is given n minus 1 times. So the running time or the running cost of the algorithm will be the cost of statement, summation of all statement, into the number of times statement is executed. So running time of insertion sort will be C1n plus C2n minus 1 plus C4n minus 1. We are not taking C3 as I suggested, that it is just a comment. And we add all of these. And when we add all of these with some constant C1 to C8, the running time depends on the value of Tj now. And these vary according to the input. So what would be the best case now? If the array is already sorted. So we always find that AI is less than equal to key. It will always happen if the array is sorted. So all Tj would be 1 only because it is sorted. While will not take any time. So the running side time would be, we will take all Tj to be 1 and we'll only be left with this n minus 1, and we'll rearrange them and we'll see that it is these constant added n minus this constant added. So we can easily express this Tn, which is in the form of an plus b, and we just assume that these are a represent this and b represent this part. That depended on the statement cost Ci. So Tn is actually a linear function of n. But what about the worst case? When the array is in reverse sorted order. So we will always find inside this while loop of insertion sort, AI will always be greater than key in while test. So we have to compare key with all the elements to the left of jth position, and we have to compare with j minus n1. Right from this point to all the values here, as you have seen in the case of 1, we have to compare. And since the while loop exists because I reaches 0, there is one additional test after j minus 1, which is uh, reaching to 0. So Tj would be actually j minus, we'll do it for j minus 1 time and we reach to 0. That is also one test. So Tj, the time for Tj will be actually j. So when we add j from 2 to n, Tj, this will be equal to 2 to n and j. And when we add Tj minus 1 from 2 to n, that will only be 2 to n, and that is j minus 1, because Tj we have replaced it with j, with the solution I told. And this sigma I to 1j is known as the arithmetic series. It is a simple series, you know. So this is equal to n into n plus 1 by 2, simple 1 plus 2 till n, that is n plus 1 by 2. So when we see that this is equal to sigma j minus 1, which is actually equal to n plus 1 by 2 got from here, n minus 1. And this is these are actually not necessary. There is a parenthesis. They are for clarity only. And letting k equal to j minus 1, we want to generalize it now. We don't want to make j or any values which we use. We wanted to generalize. So we see that when we add a summation of 2 to n j minus 1, this will be only a summation of some k from 1 to n minus 1. That will be simply n minus 1 by 2. And running time would be, let us add this because we have found out tj from this discussion. And when we add it, we find that we have n square, n, and other values. So this is an square plus a, bn plus c. So actually it is taking a quadratic time, means a quadratic function. It represents the quadratic function. So for worst case and this average case analysis, we usually concentrate on finding the worst case analysis running time. That is the longest running time for any input size n. And why? What is the reason for worst case running time? The worst case running time gives us guaranteed upper bound on the running time for any input. And for some algorithm, the worst case occurs often. For instance, when searching, the worst case often occurs when the item being searched for it is actually not present, because we have to search all along. It is not there. And searching for absent item may be frequent. Why not to analyze the average case? Because it's often about as bad as the worst case. So let us take an example. Suppose we have randomly chosen some n numbers as an input to insertion sort. So on an average, the value of the key aj is less than half of the elements in aj minus 1. And it is greater than other half. Why is it so? This is why, because we are taking an average case. We assume that if these are the numbers and we are trying to find out the values, those half values, means a considerable half of the value would be less than half the element of a1 to j minus 1. This is what we take in average case. So on average, the while loop has to look halfway through the sorted subarray from 1 to j minus 1, and we decide to drop where to drop this key. So this tj would be j by 2 in average case. Please understand that in average we take a plus b by 2, this sort of thing we take. So we have taken tj as tj by 2. But the average running time or average case as running time is approximately half the worst case running time. It's still a quadratic function of n, a n square plus b n by plus c. And what about the order of growth now? To analyze or do analysis, to ease our analysis, we need to focus on important features. We look only at the leading terms of the formula running time. We just drop or ignore the lower order terms or the constant coefficient. We just drop them, just for the sake of completeness. For insertion sort, we already abstracted away the actual statement cost to conclude that the worst case is a n square plus b n plus c. We have dropped all the lower order. If we drop it, we will just find out a n square. And if we ignore the constant, we will see that it is n square. But we cannot say that the worst case running time is equal to n square. It grows like n square. It is very important. It is not, the worst case running time is not n square. It grows like n square. But it doesn't equal n square. And we say the running time is theta of n square, just to capture the notation that the order of growth is n square. Order of growth, not equal to, right? So we usually consider one algorithm to be more efficient than another if the worst case running time has smaller order of growth. So this is order of growth. So next we'll be taking the merge sort. Till then, thank you so much. Take care.